Yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to the Hardcore Melt Detecting Radio Show. I'm Derek Asklar and Craig Talley's on the line here. We'll be hosting the show tonight. Sorry about that. Kind of got started wild there. A huge gunshot, rifle shot right next door neighbor. I guess is out there target shooting or something. Kind of scared the dogs and everything else, but we're getting it fired up. If you guys want to give a call in, we're kind of having open lines tonight. Call in at 352-504-4170, and we'll get you on the line. Or you can get on live chat just by going to Spreaker.com, go to Hardcore Metal Detecting Radio, and you'll see that we're live on there. Just hit the comment button. You can get on there on chat also. So, Craig, it's been been a wound up day already, but I'll just kind of talk a little bit about the photos I put up there on the Hardcore Metal Detecting Facebook page. A lot of you guys know this already. I've been doing this property, hunting this property over here. We're calling it the Toll Bridge property, and it dates way back, and it was in my wife's family. Back in the 1820s, I think we got it back to there as far as dated. It could have been a little bit soon, a little bit earlier than that even, but the information about this property and stuff, and the bridge that was on it up until 1961. Thereabouts. I have a photo of that bridge, probably one of the only photos around. I cannot find another photo of it anywhere. The landowner finally let me hunt on it, and I didn't do a whole lot of hunting on there yet. I've been doing more research and everything, trying to figure out where things would have been if I could find any aerial photos and stuff. But I did put some aerial photos that I just found from 1941. And the previous ones were from the 59 or something like that, and the bridge was still there, but the quality, believe it or not, Craig, is better on the 1941 photos than on the 1959. I haven't figured out why, but you can zoom a lot further in. Matter of fact, on one of the photos you can even see the shadow in the hydrilla that's on the river, the shadow of the arch of the bridge in the hydrilla there, which I thought was pretty cool on an aerial photo.
One of the things is that's not a digital picture. It wasn't taken digitally.
Right.
In the 40s, but I've noticed that some of the old black and white photos almost have more, detail or except for the color, it looks sharper or something.
Right. Yeah, it does, and you can zoom in. Well, that's the problem I was having, is trying to put those photos up. They wouldn't. I could try to download them. They have them in some kind of a different format. I can't even remember what it was now. But I had to change the format of the picture and stuff like that to get it to post up. But even the detail of the train. I mean, that train, that was, and I can't remember the company now, but it was like the narrow gauge rail. Or was, back in the day, there was a spur that went up through there, I believe, and that's where the bike path is right now, with the Coochie State bike path that goes like 50 miles or something, that follows the old rail bed that goes up and through Floral City and up into Inverness and continues on, but it's no longer there. But in that photo in 41, there's actually a train on the rail, which kind of surprised me because I didn't think they were using it at that time, but I guess they would have, because it was still World War II time. As far as moving stuff around, on rail was probably the way they did it most of the time anyway. So the other property, there's another spot on the next property over, which is also owned by the landowner. And in 1941, it's kind of hard to zoom in all the way, but you can tell there is a structure there. There was actually a house and a barn on that property. And it's about, I'm going to say about 500 acres over. And you have to actually cross in there, but it's no longer there. All there was is some foundation, not foundation, but like the timbers, the bigger ones, Craig. He found some of those in that field, but that's about all that's left. There's no trees, nothing. It just looks like a regular field. But it's never, as far as he knows, it's never been hit. He thinks that somebody could have come off the river at the Toll Bridge property, and and I'll find out because I'm going back out there, obviously, and kind of cherry pick that back part of it. And they could have, but that land has changed so much. He's even scraped, which he didn't tell me at first. He scraped the property just in front of the house, practically, I don't know, a couple 100 feet, and that would explain a lot why I wasn't hardly getting anything but like a can or two here and there I did find a nickel, but it was only from the 79 or something like that. But he probably scraped, he thinks about a foot. So that could have been just a recent drop. It was only 4 inches down, but I'm thinking he pushed all that over to the other side of the house area property, and it's probably down that embankment a little bit. So the next time I'm going out, definitely bringing the bliss tool with me, because I'm going to have to this stuff is going to be, I'm going to find, old stuff on top of new stuff. I mean, if they pushed that much dirt around, and they did this about, let's say 10 years ago. That's when he did that part of it. So, yeah, it's kind of a crazy situation directly in front of it, but it's nice to know that there's also a home on the general location that's actually owned by the same guy. I also think I found the orchard. They talked about a plum orchard or something like Chinese plum orchard somewhere in there, and I think I may have kind of located that also. These are all just pretty much sight reading, trying to figure out where the layout was, where the actual road went, the actual stagecoach road that they used, which I'm within about. In most cases, I'm right on the stagecoach road, but the first part of it we think went up into the field, and I think in 41, that aerial photo shows it coming off the bridge and going at least a couple hundred yards into the main field before it cut over and through. So that kind of changes the layout where people would have camped or anything else through there on that property as they needed to cross a bridge or already crossed it, because it's really the only thing around that I can tell for quite a distance. So they would have stopped, if anybody was traveling through to get to Webster or what have you, they would have probably stopped there somewhere along the way. So it's, just I'm finding more and more information. One of the things that I wanted to tell you guys about where I found these photos was actually the one of the university websites. They actually had vintage photos or whatever, from early on, and it just happened to be in there. Some of the aerial photos from the area that I live in right here. Now I can't see my house or where my house was. It's really close to that, but it's kind of like the next couple frames over. And they only did this one stretch as near as I can tell. At least that's all they have the information for. But I was able to locate a lot of other things and other areas I hunt at through their site. So it may be an option for you if you guys, if you have a university near you or whatever they have. Usually have a online library kind of thing. It's another source for research. And, unless you're buying the actual photos and stuff. It's like historic aerials, Craig. If you ever tried to buy a photo on there, I wasn't going to pay for it because I didn't want the photo that bad. It was like $140 or something like that to download, to buy a copy of or whatever to download it or something like that. Which they have to make money, but I don't know what they do. I mean, they have a lot of information on there, but just for my area, I'm not seeing anything I can't get anywhere else, only because my area is out in the sticks and, where there wasn't a lot of information. During World War II, we did have an air base out here, a cargo air base. I think it was a chemical weapons thing or something like that. I have old maps about that. So that was probably 15 miles from here. So there's probably, in that era, I do have a lot of aerial photos, but they're not the best. After, I think I have some from 48 or something like that. But they're actually worse off. And it's kind of funny, Craig, because they had a couple aerials from 1937, but you don't even know where the heck they're at. There's no landmarks that I can make out. I know where the photo says it was, but it's not really showing me anything. And there's no river reference or anything like that. So then the quality of the photos was horrible. But, back then, I was surprised the 1941 photos were that good. And I'm still doing more research. But, this property is really starting to turn out a lot of things we didn't know. One of them is that he has an actual photo, a physical photo of an aerial view of the general, I don't know, I guess you could say Bushnell, Nobleton, whatever the Tri-County area. And you can see a third bridge. It's in between the highway that, where the bridge is now and where the one I'm hunting at. There's actually physically another bridge in between and it only shows up in that year because it's not in 1941. I don't see it in those photos at all. So it could have been washed out, torn down. I don't know, but it's another point for me to start looking for embankments and stuff along the river. It has to be some evidence of it. So I may have found another one. It's kind of weird. I never expected that, but he was all excited about it when he got the photos. And actually a physical photo, not a copy off a computer or something. So that was really interesting. So, yeah, that's been it's been fun researching this property, Craig. I mean, because it is really tough. I mean, I'm having to go into like railway maps and stuff, just hoping I'm going to catch something that's going to turn me on to something else along the area. But I was able to zoom in on a lot of the properties I know aren't there anymore. A lot of the houses that are off on to the west of the river, and I know they're not there anymore. So they were, if they were in that 1941 photo, and these are big houses. So I don't know. It may be lead into a lot more kind of cool stuff, or at least a lot more history that kind of uncovers. So, and that's half the fun of it, I think, Craig. I mean, I know. Why don't you tell them about what you've had a busy week as far as permissions? So,
yeah, I was at. We had a car show on Sunday, and it's the second one I've seen, and it's right down Main Street, right in front of my house, and they probably had about 175 antique and old cars, and all fixed up, and pretty crazy. And I did a little video on my YouTube channel of it. But when I came out in the morning, some of the guys were just setting up, and so this guy walked up and got to talking to me, and I was telling him I just moved down here, and that's my house right there. And I said, yeah, I found a lot of relics in this yard. And he goes, Civil War relics? And I said, yeah. And he goes, he reaches in his wallet, pulls out this card and gives it to him. And he says, give me a call. I own 100 acres. You can hunt up my house.
There you go.
Hunt up my place. And I go, oh, really? And he goes, yeah. He goes,
that's a lot of land.
He said, yeah, he lives like 2 miles from my house. So
that's pretty
anyway,
cool. I mean, it's a lot of. You could hunt that, Craig. If it's, 100 acres would take you years to get over. The way we hunt, we're so thorough, man. We'll be hunting there forever.
Well, he said it's been hunted.
Yeah.
He said I've let people hunt it before, and he said they didn't find anything good. They just found coins and bullets, and stuff like that. So, and I was thinking, yeah, but you never know.
Yeah.
So
if you're finding coins and bullets, you're going to find buttons.
Well, anyway, he said there's like 3 to 5 or 6 house sites out in those fields, and he said you can see in the spring you can see the wildflowers or the flowers growing where they were. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, you can probably also hear the nails in the ground when you get up on that area too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, but
hey, Craig.
Anyway,
I was going to say I could feel a road trip coming on. Be up to see you in a couple months, brother.
Yeah. Anyway, I told my friend next door, and I told him about the general area where it was, and I said, I'm gonna, go up there soon, call the guy up, and,
check it out and all that.
I said I've driven by it twice, and he's got like I can see the road that goes up to his house, but there's a big gate across it. So I thought it was like several different properties there, but I think he owns all this stuff. It looks like he wears like little warehouses and stuff, and
yeah,
he does. He's got some kind of business where he makes custom shelves for closets and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, wow, it might be just materials and stuff too. Yeah, if he's really into it.
But hell of a nice guy, and but anyway, I'll see what happens, and
yeah, I mean, I'd go over there, Craig, just to pick his brain. If how long has he had that property? Sounds like most of his life, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
So go up there and have a beer with him and talk to him a little while. And
he, he has a pond and he has a dam, and he said I was talking about the rain and everything we've been having, and everybody's been talking about it. But,
yeah.
he said rain was so bad it broke my dam and all my fish died.
Oh,
got
wow.
swept away.
Yeah, that does happen. I remember it happened to one of my neighbors up
wow,
north.
I said, that's unbelievable. I said,
Yep.
but anyway, what was it? Every day I walk to the post office and I met this guy about a block away, and last year, and guy's handicapped and stuff, but real nice guy, and he knows that he's been here a while, and knows what's going on. There's a lot of people, and a lot of people stop by and talk to him, and I've met a bunch of people that way. But but anyway, there's right next to where he rents a room. The next house over is this. It is the worst looking house you've ever seen. It's like trees growing through it, and
oh wow, it's bad.
I heard from another neighbor that the whole, all the woods, got termites in it, but it's a half an acre, and I had permission on the other side, this other lady's house, but I didn't find much over there. I found a washed-in quarter and a mercury dime and some clad and a couple pieces of horse tack, and that were iron, but that was about it. And I don't know if it was hunted or not, but most of the stuff I dug was pretty deep.
Yeah.
But anyway, this yard is a half an acre. So anyway, I get a call yesterday in the afternoon, and Jim says, "Hey, there's people next door, and they're thinking about buying this house, and they dug a big hole." And I said, "I saw two holes when I was walking by earlier." And he goes, "Well, they're looking for the sewer." And so they got the general idea, but they got this detector, and it doesn't seem to be working right. And so I told him, I said, I know a guy that's an expert in this right down the street. I'll give him a call, So
yeah.
I said, "Are they there now?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "All right, I'll be down in about 3 minutes." So I got my stuff, jumped in the car, went down, met the guy, and he's in his 70s probably. And he's a builder developer, and he's been doing this for building houses for 45 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And he's kind of wants to build the house on his property, and he was going to tear the house down and then build a brick house next in the kind of where the side yard of this house is.
Right.
But he had a property in Strasburg, and that's where he's from, which is 5 miles away. And so anyway, his wife was there with him, and so I walked up and introduced myself, and so I just live right down the street there. And so he goes, "Wow, that metal detector is pretty different looking." And I said, "Yeah, this is probably one of the deepest ones in the world." And I said, "Let me go over the hole and see what's going on." At first, I started in front, and I could hear the pipe, even though it was down 3 feet deep.
Right.
He goes, "Oh, I can hear a signal," and so he had a hole about 4 feet across.
Jeez, he dug his butt off.
and it was about 2 feet down. He had this huge pile of dirt, and so he was digging. When I got there, and he was like, his face was kind of red.
Gonna have a heart attack.
And he was, yeah.
As hot as it is.
So anyway, I turned the machine on, pulled the headphone jack out, and let him hear it, and pinpointed it. And I said, "Yeah, you kind of dug a little bit. I mean, you're right on it, sort of, but most of the hole was to the right of it." So,
yeah.
I said, "Here, I'll pinpoint it even better." So I pulled out my pinpointer, and he goes, "What's that?" And I go, "It's a pinpointer, And I said, "I used to not use one, but I've been using one for almost 3 years, and really works good. So I turned it on, and stuck it down there, and then I probed around until it got a real loud signal, and I go, it's right there. And he goes, man, that's wild how that little pinpointer thing works. I said, yeah.
We got all the toys.
So I said, well, take your shovel and hit real hard right on top of that. Well, no, he had a pry bar.
Yeah.
And so he whammed right on top of it, and it bounced off and went bang. He goes, oh, that's definitely it. So he got down there and he scraped it all away around the pipe, and then took a little mini sledgehammer out and beat a hole through the pipe. And so what they were going to do is they ran into a problem. I guess they put a camera through, and it hit this terracotta or something.
Oh, he thought, yeah, the pipe, yeah. They broke the pipe sometime or another.
Well, yeah, and I was telling him, I said, my house in Alexandria had that terracotta crap, and they were going to charge us $11,000, to fix it, and my brother actually flagged down he saw the guy that was a plumber, and it stopped on the side of the road, and he went over and asked the guy and told him what he needed, and the guy ended up bringing a work crew over and doing it for $3,800.
There you go.
Water line in, plus the sewer line.
Can't beat
in
that.
two different places, and the whole crew had to dig under our porch.
Jeez.
But anyway, it's a mess with these pipes. You don't know where they're going.
Yep.
And this one actually bent. It went out to the street just beyond the curb, and then it made about a 45-degree angle to the middle of the street,
right
where the big manhole cover is. So anyway, they. After I finished,
found it.
Yeah. Well, how much do I owe you, to do that? And I said, oh man, you don't owe me anything, but I was wondering if I could, metal detect the yard. And you got it, man. You can hunt it all you want.
There you go.
And but he said I haven't bought it yet, but he said I'm pretty sure I'm going to get this,
Right.
And but he said, I got to make sure that the pipe's, good. So
right.
I walked by this after. Well, I kept walking at the street, looking down to see what was going on. I didn't see anything for a while, and then about 1:30, I saw a big plumbing truck there from Strasburg. So I walked down, and they actually had this probe in there and they had a big reel with fiber optic cable, and it was inside almost like a cage, kind of the wire was.
Yeah.
And they snake it in the hole with a camera. And then they had a laptop set up, and you could see what the camera was seeing through the laptop in the side yard.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. But
what are they going to do with the
35 feet?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, they got 35 feet in, and they were saying it looked really good. And then then the guy, one of the guys was saying that, they were having a hard time getting it further in. So I went on up to the post office, and before I could even get there, the lady next door wanted to know what was going on. So I talked to her for about a half an hour, and then I got the mail, and I came back, and they'd already got the thing all the way out, and everything looked good. So anyway, the guy sees the old guy sees me and comes running over, and he goes, I got your phone number and everything. So he goes, I'm going to definitely give you a call. And he goes, it looks good. The sewer thing came up good. So, all I have to do is negotiate a price on it. And so I said, oh, cool. I said, let me know. I'll come on down and hunt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But,
well, I was going to say, you ought to ask him if he does get the property, let you go through the house first. I'm telling you, Craig, you might find some little gems in there or something. You never know. With all the boards being busted up.
About that other property, my friend next door said that Stonewall Jackson was up here early in the war, and they were camped along that side of the road.
Really?
And the Louisiana Tigers were probably in that area where that guy's got that 100 acres.
That'd be neat.
I don't know if I don't know if they have those Pelican buttons or not, but that's a good button to find.
I'm telling you, if people have been on there before, Craig, I mean, even, it doesn't really matter. I mean, when are we talking, though? I mean, we're talking 10, 15, 20
Most
years
of the
ago.
properties that I've found my best stuff at have been on properties that have been hunted and given up on.
Right, right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, we're talking 10 or 15 years ago.
It was funny. I would go behind some of the best hunters in Northern Virginia, and I'd be out in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden I'd see one of those guys, and they come running up and go, "Oh, you're here! What'd you find here?" And I'd tell them, and they were like shocked, and most of the time they, a couple of spots, I got hundreds of bullets in 117 buttons in 3 years out of this one spot that nobody would go back to. Oh, you're crazy. That other guy has hunted that place to death for 10 years.
Yeah, most of the time.
He found 5 times more than I did.
Right.
But, going back, it was worth it. I mean, it was only 20 minutes from my house.
Right.
And actually, it was right behind the tennis club that I taught at for years, for like 20 some years. And it's all condos now.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking too is that what technology were they using at the time? Because there's been a big jump. So I mean, if they did it in the early 90s or the 80s,
well, he was using the Nautilus, but he was using the DMC-1, and I was using the 2.
Right.
And it was a little deeper. It was the newer one, but.
I meant present day though. I was talking about present day, about that 100 acres. I mean, even if there was hunters all over it for the 70s and 80s, if there's not been anybody really on it, I mean, God, if they found stuff there before, you're going to clean up, or you should. I mean, because of the general, just the general rule about depth on these older machines, that they do good, but they don't stand up.
Steve's been down here for 6 years, and he was killing these guys with the Nautilus.
Right,
right. And see, hardly any Nautilus is down here. It was all these old whites, and old Garretts. It's like I've seen this before. A lot of these guys won't buy anything foreign.
Right.
They're just nothing. You can't buy anything foreign. You got to have American stuff. Mm-hmm. And I gave up on that. When I tried the Mine Lab, years ago.
Right.
I'd always had American machines, but when I got that Mine Lab, it outperformed
what
the
you
Nautilus. Had. And I tested it. The Nautilus. I used that thing. I got a heck of a collection of stuff from that machine.
Right.
I can't knock it at all. But and some people don't agree with me on. But especially in a little bit funny ground.
Right.
The Mine Lab just, it just.
Well, the Nautilus is notorious for what I've heard from you and anybody else has ever used one. If you go into any kind of mineralization, you start having some problems, with the Nautilus because it, with the Mine Lab, anything newer that has those kind of, that can work in that ground at all is going to do better than it. I mean, no brainer really, but. As far as just nowadays, just in the last, I don't know, I can't even remember now. You're telling me a dime-sized target at 7 inches or something with the Nautilus thereabouts, or was it deeper than that?
I could get one, maybe 8 or 9. If the ground is really good. But now you could actually pump up the threshold.
Yeah,
and I would. On the right ear where the all metal was, it would be blaring. So I'd turn that way down as hard as I could, and it would, still was
overpowering.
It would boost the discriminant side immensely. I got I think a V nickel at, like 12 inches, but it was so noisy. It was just
horrible.
Everyone, if you concentrated, you could all of a sudden you would get this. It was almost like a scratchy, banging hit, but it would, you could tell it was, a non-ferrous object. But I dug I dug a VMI button, cuff button, about probably 8 or 9 inches deep with that machine,
Right.
doing that trick. But that was, I didn't use that much. It was only on the worst sites. I mean, the sites that were already been cleaned out. I'd already been over them and everybody else, and you just weren't finding anything, but you knew there had to be something left.
Oh yeah, I
I'd
mean,
use
it's
that trick.
no matter how good. I
But
mean, people are other hunters. I mean, it just depends on how they hunted. I mean, you may have a guy there that was like crazy methodical, but in most cases, once they get onto a spot, they work their way around. But he could have. I mean, there's a big area, Craig. I mean, there's no way he got his coil over every square foot of that place. I mean, there's got to be other stuff there and stuff that was deeper or masked up or whatever. To me, I love those kind of sites. It doesn't matter who hunts them. I can hunt them, and you can go in there and find
I've
stuff.
been doing this for a long time, and
Yeah.
a lot of times when places been when all the good all the easy targets have been picked,
Right.
People will go into those fields. The new next generation of guys, will go into that field, and after they spend like an hour, and they're not getting any good targets,
They walk away. Yeah. Disheartened.
A lot of times, what people do when they get in a big field like that, they start swinging fast and trying to cover ground.
Well, they don't really.
And that's one way of doing it, but I don't know. I just I go slow. Everybody runs ahead of me.
When we were hunting up there in Pennsylvania, was like that. Remember, we were at that Dippa hunt, and me and Craig were hunting together. Kind of walking up the field, and Craig goes, "Man, I don't even know where to start at this place." It just pretty much you start, and when we worked our way. I don't know how big that field was. It got to be at least 3 or 4 acres anyway. We worked our way and just started working our way in there, and we found I think I found a round ball, and Craig found something or another. I can't remember what. Maybe it was a bullet or a flat button or something. But it wasn't like we were hitting targets left and right. But once we worked our way down the field and then turned back and came back, but we were watching others. Not everybody. I mean, but, just people that stood out that were working so fast. Like Craig was saying, everybody's going to work differently in it. But it's a shock when you have that much of an area. If you're not used to hunting fields. I mean, Craig hunts the woods a lot of time. He don't hunt anywhere, but I mean, when you're given, okay, where do I go? That's what I feel like down here, Craig. When I'm looking at a 450 acre field or 1,000 acre field, I mean, that's why I'm just like scrambling for any kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, help, as far as internet research, photos, old photos, even family photos and stuff like that. I was even going like they had just regular photo, hoping to see a photo of the general area, and I actually found some of where the old post office used to be. There was actually a rail station in that town. Of course, the rail was right there along the side, but I mean, they showed pictures of these things and where they're at. As far as back then, now I got to find out where the actual location is and everything. But people have probably hunted the area before, but there's just you're going to find, if there was stuff there, if they found so much stuff there, there's got to be a little bit more. And you may not find a ton of targets, but just once you find something in those fields, you're working your way around it and trying to, spiral out a little bit. I mean, that's what we always talk about too. But Craig's the kind of hunter anyways, that if he finds one thing, he's going to beat the crap out of that, 20 square foot area anyways, and then he's going to move on, move some direction or other to see if he can find something else. But, it doesn't matter if, who's hunting it, and we're not, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Nobody's a bad hunter. Everybody hunts differently. So it's just how well your own, how much you can change the style that you hunt, which Craig will switch up. And I've seen you do it, Craig, the way that you move, the way you're working an area, how you're swinging the coil, and you start getting down the sides of hills and everything else, because you're trying to go someplace where a lot of people probably wouldn't have wanted to go. It'd be harder to swing a coil in that environment, in that thicket right there. But, I mean, I've seen you do, I've done it. We go right up against near fences and stuff like that. We find a lot of but a lot of detectors just can't get that close. It's just having a different kind of tool to get the job done, type situation. But
yeah, I've actually climbed up cliffs
Yeah.
Swinging the machine with one hand, and holding on to like branches, pulling myself up,
Hmm.
and you wouldn't believe some of the areas. One time we were at this one area, and it was this 100-foot hill, and in some places it wasn't too bad, but then when you got to the top, it was horrible. But all the stuff was right at the top, probably the last 20 feet, and the bad thing was you'd get the thing out of the hole and it roll down the hill, or
Right.
fall, start going, like especially bullets, they would just start going down the hill, So
Like, oh crap!
what I did was I got my body in front, of the thing on my knees, and tried to block it, where it would roll into my knees or something. But it was hard, it was hard to dig and not lose the machine and hold on at the same time.
Yeah, these situations.
You'll do anything, if there's relics, and you go, well, there had to have been. Here's a big swamp. They were probably not in this swamp. They were probably up on those hills, and they probably sat on the edge of those hills.
Well, it's a vantage point. They could see.
It was a big winter. Yeah, it was a big winter camp, and it was near a big railroad depot too.
Right.
And so I've seen pictures of some of these camps where people have taken photos, like in 1860, 2 or 3. Down in Stafford County, and they showed like this camp that just goes on forever. It's just, and there's people reading newspapers, and people smoking cigars and pipes, and
yep.
Guys in groups talking, and they're all over the place. I mean, as far as the eye can see in this photo, it's a big camp. There's thousands of guys there, and so you go. Just think that's just one day. I wonder how much they dropped in one day.
Right.
In that picture.
Yeah.
Or just in an hour.
Yeah. Some of the situations. Oh, go ahead.
You see these sutlers wagons. They sold all this cheap crap for a lot of money to the soldiers. And then they paid them in tokens, back change instead of the real money.
Right.
But they, you think, God, they had, a lot of silver coins and Indian head pennies and flying eagle cents, and
right, they had whatever.
Some of them even had gold dollars and $2.50 gold pieces if it was early enough in the war and they were kind of from a rich state or whatever. But that's where if you could find the spot where that sutler set up his wagon. You could probably find coins all around that area.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, it's just
that people dropped.
I mean, it's just don't go by this rule that down the street, every hunter in the state of Florida has hit that spot. There's nothing left. Don't be fooled. I mean, I've gone into spots that have been just you have friends that have hunted them and everything else, but I go in there and I find it changes the way I hunt. I know the easy targets are gone, or mostly anyways. The targets I'm looking for are going to be in that 7 to 12 inch range down in the ground at least. And you got to have the right equipment to do it and everything. But a lot of these detectors will do this now. They'll get a dime sized target at 8 inches, 9, 10 inches down. If you have the right detector and the right setup with it. But yeah, you're open. If somebody did that property, if this happened, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, well, you have a pretty good chance of finding some cool stuff.
He said he'd let people for years hunt there.
Yeah.
But I don't know how, when anybody's been there recently or anything,
Well, the way I look at it
is, I know, from the area I used to hunt, down along the Potomac and mostly, and, for 50 or 60 miles along there, different areas along Route 1 mostly, but, we branched out all, if we heard about a spot, we'd reciprocate. We had guys that, would say, hey, I know a spot out in Fairfax or, Dale City or something like that. And
Yep.
And I was always taking people with me, if they wanted to come, but some people won't reciprocate,
Oh yeah, yeah.
But anyway,
If you don't get in there,
I kind
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, I figured if all I need to get into is this one spot, and I'm only looking for that one good thing. I want something rare. I want something that most people don't find. That's what I've always been my goal when I go out. That's what I'm looking for that particular day. And like certain sites, I know what the best thing is found there, and that's what I want to try to find.
Yep.
And some of the places, you have a chance of finding a real. You have, a new. I hunted one place for a long time and never found a cob there, but there have been cobs found there, and I found cut reals and one reals there.
Right.
I found, I found the King Charles II cufflinks there.
Yeah.
Which are from 1600s.
Right.
So I can't complain about that. I mean, how many the guys in England were kind of shocked, when I was telling them I found, King Charles II. He was king from 1660 to 1685.
Right.
But
and
the archaeologist, my friend told an archaeologist, he didn't tell him exactly where I found it, but they didn't believe it.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way, and I said, well, there's a lot of stranger things, you don't have the records. Like, you can't look this stuff up on the internet.
You don't know who walked. Yeah.
When the first people came through that area, what the first thing they did was they went exploring.
Yep.
It was probably the greatest adventure anybody'd ever been into. Here's first white people that have ever, been to this place. And, nobody else except for the Indians had explored this area. And here's this whole continent. They didn't even know it at the time.
You have no idea where they went. They wanted to see everything. It's just, I've always said that about Florida. I mean, Florida was a rough, doggone place way back, and it still is, really, when you get into the thick of it. It's, with the exception of housing and stuff. But you imagine they wanted to see what was in the next field, what was in the, what was across this thing. Where it's the adventurous side of human nature, I think. So to say that you don't know who walked across through there, and we find weird stuff. There's weird stuff being found all the time. Viking spearheads in Florida. Give me a break. And they found one of those. They find, even up in Horsham when we were up there, they found the cufflinks from 1680s or something like that. They found a set of them up there. I mean, that place. And what is the first place that people go, Craig, when they go to a site? We've seen it in every hunt. If there is a structure somewhere on that property, that is probably the beacon where most of those hunters go to first, because that's where activity was. But, if every hunter that had permission on that place saw the same sites or whatever, maybe a stone wall, basement, whatever, they're going to start there, or they're going to look around there pretty hard anyway, work their way around to something else that looks like there was activity. But the majority of that property could have had activity on it, and, they never ventured out that far. They didn't have enough time to. That's a big area. We saw it at when we did the Florida Hunt 4. That's a big area. You could probably have 2 or 3 hunts at that place, up in Ocala, because we were finding stuff, and it was deeper. It was in weird spots, but heck, I wanted to bring up something.
It's like a lot of the spots that I hunted, and then I'd hunt for a year or so, and there'd be property markers all over the woods, where they were getting ready to develop it, and then. I remember like the Texas camp in the Wright House area. That place, was just, wooded for miles, But, the first day I was there, I found that both the camp and that Wright House. And, the first year I just kind of wandered the woods and up and down all these ridges, hunting. And I think I found 90 flat buttons.
Jeez. You crazy,
maybe
Craig.
A few eagle buttons, and I got maybe 15 infield bullets.
That's it. That's all you got, Craig? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Brother, you find the coolest stuff anyway.
Well, later on.
Excuse me. Sorry, guys.
after about a year and a half, they started bulldozing, and for 3 years, I was going up there every single weekend, and if I had any time off during the week,
Right.
I'd go up there during the week. And I dug. In 1 year, my best year was 290 flat buttons, and I got 2 USA Entwines that year, and a Dragoon Guard button. I got a what was it? A Mississippi Volunteer Corps button, or maybe it's mobile Volunteer Corps. Nobody knows for sure. It used to be thought that we were from Mobile, Alabama, but then there was rumors that Mississippi soldiers also wore those same button, but it's a very high dollar rare button. And I ended up, I think I dug at least 600 buttons in 4 years at that spot. I got nine cut reals there and 5 whole reals, including a 2 real. But some of the stuff was as deep as 4 feet down in the ground, which I couldn't believe. I mean, after they took a foot off, it was unbelievable how much stuff was there. But they kept taking stuff off and taking stuff off. They got down to the clay, and there's still stuff down in the clay.
Yeah, it's just incredible.
I'm talking 4 feet down in some of these areas. And the only reason it's got to be there is because of erosion or something.
Yeah, it could have been erosion, or it could have been a really wet, a lot of rain that year.
These are on high hills.
Well, that's true,
area.
Yeah.
There's high hills and gullies all over the place.
Well, yeah, erosion, yeah. That would happen,
But some of the stuff was,
weird.
On the side of hills, straight up and down almost. And, when they bulldoze that, there'd just be buttons all over the place. That was probably you'd see pipe stems and arrowheads, spear points, scrapers. That was down even deep too. A lot of that was down pretty deep too. But some of the arrowheads were only maybe 2 or 3 inches down. I'd dig a hole, and all of a sudden I'd see an arrowhead, in the dirt.
I think about all the spots, Craig, that I know about that I've, when I was a kid that I saw and that, put it in gardens and stuff, and not seeing the stems from pipes and, China doll heads and stuff and everything else on the property we had up there. And I'm thinking, man, I just wish I can get back on that property again, because I'm finding, stinking colonial stuff, you know what I mean? It's really old stuff. And, if it's that much just in the yard, and years later, we're talking within the last 5 years, there was actually a store, or an old store on my property back home up in Pennsylvania, that's only on one survey map that I've ever been able to find, and it shows it right there. It was literally in our front yard, and we were on the side, along the side property line, where we were putting a garden in about halfway down the property in the front there, and that's where we found all the China doll head and the stems, and there was a wagon wheel we dug up. I mean, just, and this is when I was like, I don't know, I was probably in 7th grade or something like that, back when we moved there. But yeah, man, just, if you're down the street, they find a dime or a boot buckle with diamonds in it. I mean, it's all colonial, or all from the 1700s. That's like maybe a quarter mile from where I was living at. That's where my buddy lived. And, they were finding that out playing with, in the dirt pretty much. And, it happens a couple of years before that, but, they were playing around out in the dirt in the backyard and come up with that boot buckle. Showed it to me. It had all the diamonds in it and everything. It was from somebody that had very influential anyway. That's a lot of bling to be on there, so to speak. But yeah, you just never know. They start scraping. That's why I said that property, that Tollbridge property, same situation. They scraped that property, didn't know it, couldn't tell because, it's been several years, and it just kind of took on its, the wear patterns and everything of what they were doing there. But yeah, I'm probably going to dig. If I dig stuff on the one side, it's going to be, coin size. Yeah, it's going to be. I'm going to have to run the 15-inch coil in there. I mean, we're talking. I think on the one edge I saw from in the woods, at least 2.5, 3 foot from where it was back, higher. So that's all fill, and there could be anything in that dirt. I found the gauge or whatever it's for some kind of a top feed carburetor from a Model T or something. Has a name. I have to put a picture of that. I never did do that, but it has the name of the company that makes it. The date was 1902. Or 19, no, sorry, got the date wrong. But anyways, it has a date on it stuff. I'll put a picture of it up. But I found that was a foot down in that area, and it was big, it was brass. So it's the only reason, I knew it was something good, brass, or it was going to be a pipe or something like that. But, the items got a lot older on that side than they were on the other side of probably about a 200 foot, 300 foot area. The one side didn't have, I found the 1970s stuff, and I'm finding older, we'll say mid 1900s or whatever, 1930 something, 20 something parts in the other part. So I mean, time wise, but yeah, they pushed all that dirt over there. In some of these spots, like the church property over here that I did with Mike Miller, I did it myself the first time, didn't find anything but a couple stinking Lincolns, and we're talking about probably a good 2 or 3 acre lot. And you could swing a coil in it, and it's just perfect. And I wasn't getting, other than just pop tops and stuff like that. And then I called Mike out there, Craig, because I thought maybe I'm hunting this wrong. Maybe I just don't know what the heck I'm doing sometimes. And Mike came out, and he didn't find nothing. And I think that day I found a buffalo nickel. It was up towards the front of the property. Mike says, he goes, they filled this. Somebody sometime or another filled this all in because the school was actually there in 1870s on until probably the 70s, probably 60s or 70s. So it'd been there a long time. There was a schoolhouse there and everything else. As a matter of fact, there was part of a sidewalk that we found towards the front of the property, but the whole back of the property, it's all been filled in. So you're just not going to, unless you can really hit that ground, really deep, Craig. I just don't see where anybody would ever find this stuff unless they dug it up, literally with a front end loader, scraping or whatever. You might find some stuff, but we hunted the crap out of that property because we kept on selling ourselves. Well, there's got to be something here, and you get more and more methodical, and it's just like you're just not finding nothing. So it does happen where you get a clean site, but I think it's just clean for what you have. You go out and buy a better detector or whatever, a different size coil on your machine, go back out to those hunted out spots. Guarantee you're going to find something.
It's a little different sometimes coin hunting, because a lot of the stuff is going to be more shallow, but...
well, I meant relic hunting wise, but, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, relic hunting is totally different, especially, you don't, there'll be some areas 20 feet away, stuff will be shallow, and then,
it'll
another
drop.
part, stuff's deep, and you don't know what happened, that caused that. But
and if there was farming there, they used to chisel plow. That was common practice. Plow down 2 foot. And nowadays some of the places in Ohio, there's some places they still do it, but primarily they zero till or whatever. They just pretty much disc it and let it out, plant it again. No till, whatever you want to call it, but. These old properties, Craig, like the one you're doing, Craig, if it has fields in there, man, if they ever chisel plowed that thing again, oh my God, that's like Horsham, Pennsylvania, when we were up there.
I don't think this is farmland.
It ain't farmland at all?
Grazing. I think they used it for grazing. Mostly.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's this area is so rocky, and there's boulders in the ground everywhere, but it's mostly fields,
Yeah, probably for cattle more than anything else.
It seems like where you see all the woods is right along the edges of properties.
Right.
It's like a squared off wood line running around in a square around the properties.
Right.
When you look down from Google Maps and stuff on it, I haven't looked at this property yet from Google Maps.
Right.
Well, it won't show it because it's off. Even though it's on a road, there's a gate up on it, so the guy owns the whole road, I guess, or that's his whole property is on that road.
You might be able to get it. Tax assessor's office is a good place to go, Craig. A lot of times where you pay your taxes on your property, I don't know how you guys do it up there. Down we have different offices, but there's actually a
Pay it
website.
online.
Yeah, there's actually a website on there, and you can find out, like, if you want to know, like, I don't know, there's down the street, there's a property for sale you want to, or a plot that you might want to buy. You can actually look it up and find out, how to get in touch with the owners of it and stuff, of the property. But they have that right on their website, and you can go through, and they usually have older maps too. Or at least they do down here. I don't know about, every one of the tax offices around the country or nothing, but at least in our town, in Sumter County, there's one, and I could pull up Sumter County maps back to probably, I think, we'll say 70, 65 or 70, 1965 or 70, right there, right in that area, and some topo maps too through there. So it's not really what they intended it to be used for, but if we can get some information off of it to help us out, we're not really hurting anybody by doing it, and we're not doing anything bad or nothing. It just says you can't copy or something, but you can look at, and they actually, I think, now I don't know if they had a split screen or not on that one, but anyways, just another place to look for research on these properties is the tax assessor's office. If they have a website or whatever, and it's public, public knowledge type thing, you can get on there and maybe, catch some aerial photos or anything like that, to try to identify a property or see if there was something else there at any time, because it'll have tax records that go all the way back. So just some.
Yeah, I have this Middletown map that the people next door gave me that it's got 5 different historical time periods kind of, put on, overlaid. Right. And out near that area, it doesn't go quite far enough out. Or it might, but it's hard to tell, by the map, because, it's showing stuff, much older. But
right.
It looks like there was a lot of house sites from like 1912 to 1890. Mm-hmm. There's every once in a while you see one from the 1850s, or 1700s, but on the outskirts of town. But most of the stuff, most of the older homes are inside, but that's not to say there wasn't little shacks and little, houses that were, just, back then they didn't record every single house. I mean, mm-hmm. I don't think they would have, but the further you go back, there might have been, just, poor people living back there that, they still probably might have dropped some coins or something, but mm-hmm. Their house might not have shown up on the records.
Exactly.
Back then.
Census records, stuff like that you can get. But the one thing I want to tell them too, Craig, is when you're looking, especially at the university websites and stuff like that, where you can get photos and information, look for newspaper articles, because they usually, at least the ones I saw, were for Central Florida and stuff like that. I think it was Sumter County Times at one time. I can't remember what the dates were, but it was way back. And they actually had photocopies of these newspapers on there, like, you can actually enlarge them, read them. And, it's just, I don't know, you step back in time when you read that newspaper, way back. The terminologies they use, and the, Sally Jones from down the street's won't be home this week. She's going to see her sister in whatever town. It's weird the way they just put stuff in there that we would never think about doing now. I mean, you're just inviting somebody to rob you. I'm not going to be in town tomorrow, guys, so come on. It was just weird the way they put it, and the way the law enforcement part of it, they had a section there. I might put those on Facebook just because they're fun to read. Different, good things and bad things both, but the way that the papers were written back there, the way we understand the terminology from back then compared to now, it was just, even the political side of it, Craig, and the racial side of it, everything is, you would read it and you're like, what town is this? You're reading it from this town, but the way they did, a lot of times too, they'll see like the church as a dinner, or they're having a picnic on Sunday in such and such a place outside of town. There's just all the little pieces of information you can use if you live in that town. Well, just west of town. Well, was it in this area or that area? And you start looking at plot maps, and you're just trying to do your research and get so you can get into the best spot or see where you're hunting at, what you're hunting. It just it floors me about how much stuff is even changing today. I just looked at today, my wife and I, we came back from Claremont, and a place that I had hunted, and Craig, I'm not even exaggerating, 4 days a week for months, me and a real good friend of mine, and he had hunted for 10 years before us, before I started hunting with him. The farmer just took it down the hurricane took down most of it, and they finally leveled it. So I got to go back over there because they're going to scrape the property. But man, Craig, you're talking about those sites where you found all the coins and the bullets, and I don't even know. And it's how much stuff we found there. I mean, he found half dimes. He found just crazy amount of stuff, railway seals and everything else. This is actually near the Linden Cemetery in Linden, Florida, which is pretty much, essentially the cemetery there now. It's a ghost town. But, we hunted that for years and years. And there's actually photos. It's one of the oldest houses. It had a 2-story house with double porch, like upper and lower porch. Big home. But actually the landowner grew up in the house. And I think they moved out of that when they were he was I don't know, he's got to be in his 70s now. Probably when he was about 10 or 15, they moved out of that house but left it on the property, and it's just been sitting there ever since, essentially. But we had a friend of ours that bottle hunted. Man, he found so many bottles, Craig. I mean, we're talking thousands of bottles, and a lot of them were intact, or not all of them, but it was quite a few. I'd say a good 35-40% of the bottles he found in that hole were good and not cracked up and everything. And he just incredible amount of history just on that piece of property right there. But, I saw that the other day, but it's gone. I mean, the old gas station's gone. They've been wiping buildings out left and right here and building new stuff where I just never thought they would ever put something. They are. I don't know, buildings going up, the houses are going up. It's just, now's the time to keep an eye out, guys. You see a house getting torn down or a building getting torn down, go, after they get it out of there, or before preferably, because you got a lot of junk that comes down, when they tear down a building. But if you can get in there and detect, if they don't mind, make sure you get permission. But, there's a lot of goodies to be found, because you think of the...
That's like I've been looking at this house, right, that I just got, if the guy buys it, I'm going to be, able to hunt it. But I've been looking at that spot, thinking, nobody... if I could only find the owner, they'd probably let me hunt because,
right.
The property's not in great shape,
Right. Well, if he gets that house, I'll tell you what, when he rips that house down, Craig, I'm sure you'll get on there before that if he buys it, but when he tears the house down, go back over it. I know it's a wooden house that it's going to have a ton of nails, but the ground underneath that house hasn't been touched in how many years? Even if there is a chance.
Well, groundhogs are underneath the house, supposedly.
Well, that's good. That's good. They tear up that ground, make it easier to dig. Because I'm telling you, man, these old house sites, man, that's like a gift from God. Because if nobody else has been in there, I found cool stuff, underneath where they had the hardware store and everything else in this town.
There could be bottles and stuff in there too.
Yeah.
And there could be bottles. There's a little wooded area right near the alley behind that house, and there's no telling what's in there.
There's got to be a bottle dump somewhere, cans and bottles. Yeah.
Yeah, people. I got on a bottle. I joined a group today called Hardcore Bottle Diggers.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Hey, those guys
had all these different. I was looking for a bottle group because Mike digs all these cool bottles, and we don't know much about them. And I want to start learning more about them. And I put the opium. Well, this was a. You couldn't just join. They had to approve you, and so I got on there and I showed that little opium bottle I found, or Mike found, and then I said, I got a bottle dump in my yard, and most of the bottles seem to be from like 1879 to
right,
up to the probably 40s and stuff, and I said, we don't know a whole lot about bottles. I want to learn more about it. But I said, I'm a relic hunter, and I've been doing that for 32 years. So anyway, right away, one of the administrators asked me to show the bottom of the opium vial. I showed him the side view, and then he wanted to see the bottom. So then he said that one's actually from about 1900.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, he said that's pretty cool. He goes, I never heard anybody that had bottled up in their own yard. And I said, well, I bought this yard, because I thought there'd be relics in it, and we found all kinds of Civil War relics and even earlier stuff. And so he said, oh, wow, that's crazy, And I said, well, I live in Middletown, and it was a big Civil War area. A couple guys on Instagram, one guy said, oh, I showed that house on Instagram if you'd want to see it.
Yeah, that's cool.
I call myself Bliss Tool Deus on Instagram. But
And I still haven't
anyway,
figured out how to use it yet, but at any rate, I'm on there too somewhere.
Okay.
Go ahead, Craig. Sorry.
I think, but anyway, there's a guy, I guess he lives maybe an hour or so away from here, and he said, could you use another guy with a Deus to help you?
Yeah. Gosh. Well, that house too, is that a 2-story house, Craig, or a 1-story? The one you're doing in, the old one with trees growing out of it.
2-story.
I'm telling
house.
you, if he will, I'm serious, but ask him if you can poke around in that house. I'll walk you through it, man. There's so many hidey holes and hiding places in them houses. I mean, you may not find nothing at all, but you might find some cool stuff in there hidden away. Since the floorboard sounds like they're popping up, go around and look for around the window sills, around the banisters, the bottom steps on the stairs. I mean, I'd go in there and just see what
I
you can
kind of
find.
Checked around in this house because this house is 1880.
Right. You just never know where they stash stuff. They may not stash nothing.
It's kind of hard for me to tell how old that other house is, but
right.
I don't know if it originally had a tin roof, but it has like a regular what do you call it? Just a regular type shingles on it now.
I'm telling you, Craig,
like
with
my house has a tin roof, but most of the houses around here do
maybe
the older ones.
Maybe I'll get them to tell the story, but I know somebody that it was a house in the family for many, many years. I guess the great grandparents died or something, and the family, of course, they went in there and they got mementos, whatever they wanted, and my buddy was the executor or whatever. The house was essentially his, but he just let everybody, get what they wanted, family-wise and everything. And he said, y'all got everything you wanted? And they, yeah. And, well, he remembered his father telling him about the attic. And it was there was an attic there, but when they re-sided the house sometime or another, but there was no access to the attic from the inside of the house. And they sided over the other part, so he knew about it and went up there. Civil War uniform. I mean, all kinds of just guns and this and that, uniforms and clothing, and it was like a time capsule in that house. And he doesn't, really put up photos of anything or anything like that, and I don't blame him really. But yeah, it was an incredible, like a little time capsule in that attic that nobody really knew about because, well, it just kind of like. His dad told him, but I mean, who else in the family knew about it? Then nobody else wanted to look there, mentioned it. So yeah, it was kind of cool. You never know what you're going to find ever. I mean, there was not even 2 years ago, there was a place, I think it was in Claremont, Florida, where they were renovating and opened up the wall and found $47,000 stacked up right there near a window frame down below it. There was money stashed in there, and it was probably from 1940s or 50s, somewhere in there. But I mean, it wasn't real old, but they still did it, So look around, buddy. That's like an adventure and a half for me. I love going through old barns and homes and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, this town's got a lot of history, and even before that, it was a major commerce area coming down Route 11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
from like the 1830s or 40s, and it was one of the major roads. They took limestone and they actually paid people and people would just come out for a couple hours each day and just pound the limestone until it was like a foot deep all the way across the road.
Right.
And they would they put different layers, different size, and then they would pound it. And then when the horses and wagons started going over it, it just crushed it down until it was like so hard packed that, you know,
Oh yeah.
like like a modern road nowadays. And,
Yep.
but they had a toll road every 5 miles.
Jeez.
And you can. And somebody said you can actually, measure it almost to the inch from where the next toll house is from the other one.
Yep. Yep.
It's that exactly 5 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, God, you had to stop every 5 miles for 100 and some miles if you were going down like to Stanton. I'll bet that drove the merchants crazy. You had to probably pay a penny, or I don't know how much they have to pay. I think maybe it might have been on how big a load you had.
Right. Could have, yeah, probably by a pound, by the load.
They probably figured somehow to screw you out of money.
Oh yeah. I've always said too, you get some of these old gas stations and stuff, and guys, they're going to be trashy as all get out. But I've done a few of these where there used to be an old gas station back in the 60s or 70s. It's gone. It's just maybe they still have the little building there or something like that. But the ground around it, man, phone booths, the old stand. A lot of you younger guys don't know what this is, but where you actually stood in somewhere and you had a rotary phone and you had to dial it and you had to put coins in there. I always thought those would be a great place to metal detect around that, just to find the old coins that people dropped. Every time you reach in your pocket and pull out coins, you probably drop one. Seem like, these little spots that are disappearing. And it's actually, when they rip out, I hate seeing an old building go, but, when they actually have it all the way off there, everything that, was covered with concrete or blacktop now, over the past 30, 40 years, but everything before that's underneath it. They rip up these these road beds or something like that, where they're ripping up the road, maybe the old brick off of it. I think they pave over them now, but back, when they used to rip them out, put them in, all that stuff underneath there, man, there's probably a gold mine underneath those. People walked along roads and everything else. I mean, Tommy Decker still does the curb sides between the road and the grassy area between the road and the sidewalk up there in Chicago and stuff, and finds all kinds of stuff. I mean, the least likely places it's kind of a pain, and depending on how populated the area is and stuff like that. But there's some places I only go to, like on early Saturday morning or Sunday morning, something like that, where I'm not going to be like a bunch of people around and everything like that. You don't want to interrupt anybody else, and you don't want to be bothered either. So, you can hit a lot of these spots. And if you're allowed to, if you can get permission, I'm telling you, these new construction sites where they're ripping up all this ground before they actually haul the soil off there. If you have a chance to swing a detector in there and get permission, heck, I'd do it. Craig does them all the time. He talks about that when they rip out a side of a hill to put an apartment complex in there. Craig was in there when the bulldozers were, because he knows it's where the good stuff is. So,
yeah, I mean, I heard years ago, some of the relic hunters said the only place they hunted was along Route 1.
Right.
I said, what side? And he goes, doesn't matter. That road was there back to the 1700s in some areas, but if you look at the old maps from the 1700s,
right,
it was called Gravel Road or something, and it actually swung around more toward the river in a lot of places, and now it's more straight.
Right.
They cut through the hills in order to, bring the road in a straight line.
Yeah, those are golden little gem areas too, because they haven't been, a lot of times they're overgrown and stuff.
But there's parts of that, off that original Route 1 that people wouldn't even think about, and there's old home sites along there.
Yep.
I mean, that Woodbridge area had probably the most concentration of old colonial house sites in Virginia, except maybe down in southeast Virginia.
Right.
But there's some places down. I guess I can't remember the county, but they find stuff back to the 1600s down there. Williamsburg area had a lot of super old stuff, because that was one of the
Well,
one of the earlier areas.
these roads are like
anywhere
relic highways.
along Route 1.
Yeah.
There was tobacco farms all on the river back, and then they kind of all dried up because they ruined the land. The land didn't have any nutrients left.
Right.
That's why slavery kind of almost wasn't like it was further south, like down in Louisiana and those places, because they didn't need the labor anymore because they couldn't really grow the tobacco like they did at one time, especially up in the northern part of Virginia. And
there's Craig, I guess we should say too. There's I was going to say there's
another place is along all these creeks that come off those rivers.
Mm-hmm.
People use those creeks to navigate. It was a lot easier to take a boat up those, small boat up those creeks than it was to, walk along those, rough hills and stuff, leading up to because a lot of those places, the further inland you got, it kept rising up right along the rivers. It's flat, and then, a couple miles away, it's pretty steep. There's a lot of gullies and stuff.
Well, there's places, I was just going to say that. I mean, a lot of these guys on chat right now probably know this. They've been out here, listeners. But, to the newer people maybe, or maybe, even, maybe you never even thought about it. There's places like this in just about every state. I mean, I would think anyways. I know, or town even. You got these haunts or these relic roads or whatever you want to call them, where I grew up at, there was, one went right through our property. The road ended there, now, but I mean, in the 1700s, it went for miles after that, and it's all woods, except when it crosses another, crosses a road, but, you wouldn't know it unless you're really looking for it. These are like little gold mines, don't think, I don't know, I guess you just don't leave a stone unturned. If it looks like it's an older area and you can find these little spots, there's bound to be stuff along them. I got one that runs across my property now, an old stagecoach road. Problem I have is trying to get through all the junk to get to the good stuff and get through the weeds and the trees and vines and everything that I have growing up right here. But, I'm pretty fortunate. I've had it happen a couple times in my life where I just end up moving somewhere and then finding out later. Craig did some research and everything, but we all have these little spots around. Or, you can find them. They're not, a lot of people say, well, I don't know where to hunt at. You hunt the parks, you hunt, whatever, but you got to maybe start doing some research around your neighborhood, around your town, and you will find.
That was the hardest thing. That was the hardest thing for me when I first started, was finding spots.
Right.
But I had no idea, I didn't think like I do now,
Well, that's why I hope, they listen to it.
Also, a lot of times I'd see an area and I could go into it and I just think, I don't know if there's anything there or not, but I'd go in and check it, and sometimes there wasn't much or it wasn't anything, but other times I'd find a new spot that was almost virgin, that nobody had ever been to.
Right.
Some of these places are so far out in the middle of nowhere that you almost get lost.
Yeah. Well, Brandon does that. He goes to these old cellar holes out in the middle of New Hampshire somewhere, 3 or 5 miles in. I mean, you got to search. I mean, Craig, I quite literally have photos of it. And actually a guy, and I'm trying to remember the name now, Florida Trailblazer has a YouTube channel. And I'll try to put the link up. I just happened across this because I was looking at he walks nature trails and stuff in Florida, and he has come across some awesome kind of places right literally down the street from me. And it's like maybe 5 miles away, but he went into the woods, he found an entire cemetery, Craig. I mean, we're talking hundreds of, it's all been forgotten. I mean, it's all weed covered, everything else. There had to have been other stuff around it. You can't really metal detect because it is in the state forest and all that, so don't go in there and get, but they found the old, I think there's a Girl Scout camp in there. There's a lot of stuff, old homes in there. I never even knew about them, but this guy actually goes out and finds them. But, his name is Florida Trailblazer. I'm almost 90% sure that's his screen name or whatever on YouTube. And I'll try to put the link up. I just thought he doesn't really talk about metal detecting or anything, but he's kind of got that adventurous side where, he's starting to read the stones and stuff like that. And this thing goes back to, well, the born dates are like, some of them are in the, I think, 1700s, late 1700s or early 1800s. And then, I think I want to say 1850s, 1860s. There was a lot in there for that. And I think they stopped shortly after. I have to rewatch the video, but that's just one of the places in there. It's a long loss. And it's kind of sad when you think about it, but there's, you can't really do anything. I wouldn't say dig up a graveyard. I'm just saying that if that's there has to be stuff within a mile of that somewhere. I mean, they wouldn't put a cemetery out in the middle of nowhere where there wasn't, something around, so, that was pretty neat. Just, you find information on the internet's great, Craig. I love it, for that aspect of it. And I found that simply by I was trying to find pictures of Burned Out Bridge, which is our old iron bridge, and that's where the original bridge was moved from, and then they built the one that was there up until, I don't know, 20 years ago, when it was torn down. They called it Burnout Bridge, but at any rate, that was I guess you call it the sister bridge, brother bridge of the bridge that I'm hunting right now. That isn't there either. All that's left is the pillars. But it's you wouldn't know these things. This guy. So I had to. I was trying to find pictures of that, and I came across this thing, and I clicked on the photo, and it took me to the YouTube channel. Believe it or not. And I was like, okay, that usually doesn't happen. But then I saw his other videos on there. So you can find stuff just by doing a Google search, essentially Google photo, like Civil War button or whatever. Sometimes you'll come across old photos or whatever, and sometimes you can click to them and get to other places to do more research, or maybe they'll have some information about your area. It turned out to be more research night, Craig, I think. You're researching sites, but we're just like everybody else. I mean, we're no different. I mean, there's places that I've wanted to hunt for years, and this was one of the Toll Bridge property. I never ever thought I'd ever get permission on that place. I mean, that's a huge area, but I ended up meeting the owner, and he's like-minded. He wants to know what is on his property. He wants to know what the history was. Is there anything left? And the one thing I liked about this guy, Craig, is no matter what I dug out of the ground, I dug the first day I was out there, I mean, it was kind of just, just testing out the area, so to speak. I found the bridge bolt and everything, and some cast iron. It looks like it's either a chair or a stove. I mean, even these little items, like the Model T carburetor top and everything. Oh man, I could display this over here, and I could hang this on the side of the building here. And he's going to keep everything, and anything that looks old, he's going to keep it. And I thought that was great. It's not going to get lost to the junk pile, so to speak. He has a appreciation for it, so to speak. So, you come across these places. I mean, you might get turned down 100 times, guys, but it's nothing wrong with asking again. And sometimes you just getting to know people. Like Craig, talked to one guy down the street. He gets a place to hunt. He helps somebody out, gets a place to hunt. It's a give and take, and it's
one thing I've been doing lately is, I just dropped the fact that I metal detect.
Right.
And I found a whole bunch of stuff in my yard, and that gets, if the person's at all interested, they'd start asking questions about it, and then I go, hey, there's probably stuff in your yard that they had a battle all over this whole area.
Well, that's what with
and I said, and I tell them, I don't do this for money. I've been doing it I do it for the thrill,
Right.
And it's fun, that's what I do it for. And if you want to keep everything I got that I find, that's fine. I just want to be able to do video and take photos of everything I find. But
yeah, I don't give out.
I'm in it for the adventure more than anything else, and I've already found a ton of stuff, and I'm just looking for unique things, I've never found before,
Right.
I've always wanted to find stuff that's hard to find, that most people don't find.
Yep.
Because when I first started, I used to see all these reals and stuff people dug, and I thought, I'll never find anything like that. And then one day I did, and then I thought, I can find anything.
Yep.
If those guys can find it, I can find it. So don't give up. You got to go to the but you got to give yourself a chance by going to an area that's might produce that kind of thing.
Yeah, you can't go to
But,
something that was built yesterday and expect to find, you know what I mean? It's just not, if the history's not there, if there wasn't activity there, there just wasn't. And you do run into that. But talk to the people. I mean, I do this because I want to, you know, like I got that property to hunt over there behind the battlefield. You know, I just wandered in and talked. I ended up knowing the guy kind of through his mother, knew my wife's family and stuff. But we just started talking, just, you know, kind of BSing about the property, how close it was to the battlefield and everything. I don't think I even mentioned metal detecting to the guy until the next time I went out there. I just stopped by because it was kind of like on my way home kind of thing. And I'll do that, like the guy you were talking about, Craig. I'd go have a beer with the guy or whatever, a soda, and pick his brain, because a lot of times people don't realize what they know about a property anyways. You know, they start giving you hints, little things, and you can kind of build on those. You don't need to even say nothing to them, but you know, the metal detecting part of it, they'll start bringing up, like, you know, my buddy over there, he started bringing up stuff, and I said, I metal detect, man. You think there's stuff out here? You know, and there should be. It's right by the battlefield. And he goes, I always wanted a Seminole Indian bullet. And I said, well, I'll come out here. I've been metal detecting for a long time. Then we get talking about metal detecting. You know, it's, you know, he's interested then. He's, you know, and actually I think he was more excited about the bullet I found and everything, and I gave it to him. You know, here, this come off your property. That made the guy, and then I give him a Civil War bullet, Craig, you know, that I found up there in Tennessee. You know, I got a lot of them, but he just thought that was the greatest thing in the world. You know, you make a friend, and you know he's going to tell his buddies. I've had a few phone calls now. Hey, can you help me find this or that? And you know, it's just how you I guess you make a lot of friends, but you find a lot of places to hunt too that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're helping them out. You're helping yourself out. So, you know, just sometimes a conversation can lead into so much more, and you actually bring people into the hobby. And I've always thought that's great because that just means more sites are going to open up. Yeah, you're going to have a lot more hunters, but you know, as people get into it, they're opening up more sites. They know people. You know, it's networking, I guess. You know, and it's in a positive way. It's not like a negative thing. I don't think it is, anyways. You know, I've made a lot of friends in metal detecting. I tell you, just because of metal detecting, and people still see me over here. You know, like, I go, you know, they'll come over. Hey, thanks for finding that ring for me, or whatever. You know, it's nice to hear it.
When I go down, you know, I happened, you know, it was like out of the blue, you know, total coincidence. The guy, you know, needs help. My friend's next door to the guy, mentions, hey, I can call the guy up. I come down 3 minutes later. And I'm out there, and I find it, you know, within 5 minutes, like, you know, he's got the thing opened up and, you know, banging a hole through it.
Yeah.
And then he wants to, you know, pay me, you know, well, you know, ask me, you know, how much you know, want, you know, for helping me. And I said, I don't want anything. I just, you know, I said, I was just wondering if you'd let me metal detect the property.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's done. You can hunt it. You know,
it's as simple as that.
That's
you know,
another thing. You know, if you go out and find somebody's stuff and they want to pay you, you know, I've always turned people down. You know, like I found a gold ring for a guy, and you know, he burst out crying. He was 80 years old, and he had this ring for almost his whole life, and lost it. You know, and
it's a lot of sentimental value.
You know, they were all in the yard watching. You know, and when I found that ring, they all everybody was clapping and cheering. And this old man just burst out crying and hugging me, you know, and I'm like, and then he wants to pay me and do all this stuff. And I said, no. I said, just the look on your face, you know, is the reward. You know, I did something good for you, you know, and helped you out, and you're a nice person. I knew the guy for years and played tennis and stuff. But, I said, you know, I said, you know, if anybody ever asks you about, you know, mentions metal detecting, tell them the story that I did and how, you know, I didn't accept anything. You know, I do it as a hobby. I don't.
You still get one
to make money.
Exactly, but
you know,
it still happens though. I mean, I had it happen to me where I find a ring and they give me money.
One of the neighbors walked over and said, "Hey, there's a construction site right up the hill around the corner. You just go down the street, make a right, and it's right at the top of the hill. and just go up there, and it's an old house, like 1920s,
Mm-hmm.
and they're bulldozing it down. It's pretty much knocked down. You just, there's a big bunch of dirt there. You might find something there.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, okay. I found one thing, a Mercury dime.
No. Hey, you never know.
But hey, it's silver coin.
Yeah.
I'd rather find that than
I
a handful of wheat pennies or something. But
I was gonna say I took money one time, but didn't know it. I found a ring for this lady, and they're married, whatever, on the beach, and I found it, and he shook my hand and everything. Thank you so much, and she gave me a big hug and everything, and I got metal detecting again. I got back to the vehicle, and I went to empty out my fine bag, and $100 bill was in my fine bag, and they were nowhere to be found, so they snuck the money in my fine bag because I wouldn't take any money from them. But I figured I could pay for my fuel and everything and my lunch, so that's about the only time I can remember taking money from somebody on metal detecting anything. Really, unless they just told me, hey, come out and do something and I'll pay you for it. That kind of thing I'll do. But, like survey spikes or whatever you need to find, or pipes, or, water lines,
it's
whatever.
It's funny, Mike's the youngest brother years ago moved out to Falmouth, and he had a lot out there. And then when he went to put in his house, he paid all kinds of money, and he'd had to pay extra money for the well because he had to go down 100 feet or something. And it cost a lot more than he expected, and so then they were going to come in and charge him like $1,200 to do surveying for the phone lines and, property, find the property markers and stuff.
Right.
And all he needed was on one side of the house. And so I said, Pat, I can find those property markers for you. I said, they're made out of metal,
Yeah.
And so it didn't take me 20 minutes, and he was like, I want to pay you this and that. And I said, why don't you just take me out to dinner or something,
Yeah.
I don't want any money, So he took me out for a steak dinner, and he said, man, that was cheap compared to what I was going to have to pay.
Oh yeah, just a land survey anymore is crazy expensive.
And then my friend Chuck, he bought a house down in Triangle, and he found one property marker, and I found two of the property markers within a half an hour, and we were having trouble finding the
fourth one, yeah.
And so we looked on the plot, and it was further back because it was on a cul-de-sac,
right
at the end of the road.
Yeah, it was kind of angled.
Difference. And the same thing happened with Pat's property. That it was at a, we couldn't just walk back and see him. I had to kind of hunt, back and forth. Once I found the first one, I just went in a straight line and found the second one.
Right.
I knew it had to be pretty much on a straight line.
You'd be surprised. A lot of people may not realize, Craig, how hard they are to find, though. If you're not, you're looking for something that's.
Well, I'll tell you, the funny one was when I was going up to find the last property marker on Chuck's property. It's right across, probably a quarter of a mile from Quantico Marine Base, and a lot of history there. And anyway, I'd start across the yard, after we finally realized that I have to go a little bit further back in the woods behind his house. I just start swinging back there, and I got near the area, but not quite to where I thought it would probably be. And I got a signal, and I said, Chuck, this isn't your property marker, but I got to dig this up, man. This sounds really good. And I dug up this bullet I thought was a cut-off Sharps bullet. That a soldier cut it off with like a knife.
Right.
Well, it turned out to be a rare 46 caliber Confederate picket bullet. And,
I never even heard of those. That's cool.
So and then I found a fired infield bullet, and then I found and I got this signal. This was so funny. I kept getting this signal, and I couldn't pinpoint it. And I was going around and around this little stick sticking out of the ground, and it turned out to be the metal rod sticking out of the ground. But
God! I was going to say, piece of copper wire. I've had that happen before. A piece of copper wire.
Yeah, no wonder I couldn't pinpoint the damn thing because it was sticking straight up out of the ground. I thought it would be down in the ground like the other ones were. You know, they were like real, almost like flush with the ground. But
Yeah. And, Craig,
but
we
anyway,
talked. Oh, go ahead.
I ended up finding 100. He said, "Yeah, go ahead and hunt all this, area." And I ended up finding a hut site back there, and I dug 35 of those bullets out of one hut site in a clay pipe. And then I ended up with over 100 of those picket bullets, and each one of them is like, they're like at least $10, and that was back probably in the mid '90s.
Yep.
But I don't know what they would be worth nowadays.
I don't know. Yeah. No
But,
idea.
it's kind of weird. Some of the stuff that's happened over the years, it's just weird. I'm looking for. I don't even expect to find anything. I'm just looking for some guy's property markers, and I start finding Civil War stuff.
Never know. Yeah.
Yeah, you could. Same thing with colonial stuff. One time, this guy, let me hunt his backyard. Right off the bat, it's like from the 1940s, and I found a flat button. And I go, "This is a colonial flat button." Okay, that's no colonial flat button.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I go, because I've dug them before.
Yeah.
And I
We
said,
know
"I
what we're
that.
digging."
It's a Tomback button. And he goes, "A Tomback? What?" And I go, "It's kind of a metal that's made out of." But I said, I've dug these before. These are like, early 1700s.
Yep.
And so I said, obviously, this area had colonial activity in it.
Yep. Never know until you go in there and dig.
I was telling people, my house over in Alexandria dug 64 bullets out of the yard, and all kinds of eagle buttons and stuff. And they go, "How? There was no battle up here." And I go, "No, they camped all over this whole hill."
Yeah, it was all over the place. Yeah.
Troops from the Indian Army camped up here during the war.
Huge amount.
And there's
Any
a fort.
activity.
And I said, "You don't even know it. There's a fort right in the middle of the back field of the temple, the Masonic temple."
Yep.
You can see it from Google Maps from the air, the outlines of it.
Yeah, buddy. So it's almost 9:45, Craig. I think we've done our
Really?
part.
I thought it was only 9.
Yeah, I know. I looked up and said, "Oh, man, I'll get off here right now." I got a long day again tomorrow. I haven't heard back from Mark yet, but he's one of the property owner borrowed my detector, and I told him bring it back. Well, one of my detectors, but that's another thing. He needed a favor. Hey, he gave me a favor by letting me hunt his property. Heck yeah, I'll let him have a detector for a week. Doesn't bother me none. It's just it's give and take. And you just shoot. That's how you make a friend anyway. But shoot, I will probably just sign off, Craig. I think I'm done for tonight. My voice is about gone again.
All right.
All right. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening in. We're on every Thursday and Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check us out on the Hardcore Metal Detecting Facebook page, and Craig Talley's running one also for Hardcore Metal Detecting, putting up all kinds of stuff. So, I guess we'll talk to you guys on Saturday, and get out there and keep digging. God bless.